The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host Matthew Hurley and I'm joined today by Star Sport reporter Sean Holland. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now later on the show we'll be joined by Ballinascarthy hurling forward Brian O'Donovan as the Peddlers Cross Club face St James's in the Carbery Junior A Hurling Championship semi-final this weekend. But first we will discuss the action and disruption in the Cork County Championship. By disruption, of course, I mean one thing that we can't predict in Ireland: the weather. 4 games were called off in the county series last weekend. Clonakilty versus Nemo Rangers and Musgrave against Mallow in the Premier Senior Football Championship quarterfinals, the Premier Senior Football Championship relegation playoff between Carbery Rangers and Eire Og, and the Intermediate A quarterfinal meeting of Mitchelstown and Gabriel Rangers were all called off because of an orange weather warning last Sunday, as well as 2 Carbery Junior A Football Championship quarterfinals between Kilmacabea and Randallogue and Ballinascarthy and St Mary's. So yeah, Sean, it was unprecedented times really when you looked at it last Sunday. But when you look at the weather that did ensue on Sunday after that, like the wicked conditions that were there, the county board ultimately made the right decision.
They did, Matthew, yeah, there's no doubt about that. In terms of looking at from the senior grade there, I don't think anyone would have fancied another classic in the water between Nemo Rangers and Clonakilty. You know, it'd be nice to see those two, you know, really good football teams go at it on a nice bright day under with good underfoot conditions. So yeah, it made perfect sense, and thankfully, you know, it's just the way things work out now that they're able to be fixed again for the following week. So it gives us a nice bit to look forward to, because with so much going on with the split season on one weekend, you can't get around to everything. So it gives people a chance now to get the games they mightn't have gotten to last weekend. But yeah, right decision. So it's in terms of looking at Carbery now, there's a few fixture rearrangements and bits and pieces. But yeah, there should be a few interesting games there now this weekend in the football championship to wrap up.
And of course, you talked about the games being rescheduled there. The rescheduled games are as follows. Nemo Rangers versus Clonakilty in the Premier Senior Championship is now on at 3:30 this Sunday in the same venue as the original fixture in Bandon. Carbery Rangers and Eire Og is on at 4 p.m. this Saturday in Enniskeane. Musgrave against Mallow is on this Sunday at 3:30 in Macroom, and Mitchelstown against Gabriel Rangers is on this Saturday at 4 p.m. in Kilmurray. And as well as that, the 2 Carbery Junior A Football Championship quarterfinals, Kilmacabea against Randallogue is this Saturday at 4:30 in Ardfield, and Ballinascarthy against St Mary's on Saturday week at 4 p.m. in Newstown Saturday week, because the Ball Hurlers are playing this Sunday against St James's in the Carbery Junior A Hurling Championship semi-final. Just a quick one before we leave this, Sean. Do you think it's a bit of bad preparation in a way that the 2 quarterfinals of the Premier Senior Championship, the Musgrave Mallow game and the Clonakilty Nemo game, are on in and around the same time as the Premier Senior Hurling semi-finals between Blackrock and Emo Kelly and Sarsfields against Middleton, just for the coverage of it? Or do you think the county board could have done better in scheduling the rescheduled fixtures there?
Yeah, so like it's a kind of catch-22. You know, it's just the nature of the split season, Matt. It's just trying to accommodate everyone. You know, pitches, referees. You know, there's so many, you know, cogs that go into turning the overall wheel. You know, and obviously, as you said yourself, it would be nice to get them all in. But you know, people who are interested in football will always go to football games. People who are interested in hurling will always go to hurling games. You know, there will be a crossover. But I'd imagine people will probably have their favourites picked out all right this weekend. But it would be nice. I'd imagine there's a few people from Clonakilty might have liked to travel up to Páirc Uí Chaoimh this Sunday, right? But they'll be more interested in seeing how their team gets on and hopefully getting into a county semi-final.
Yeah, definitely so, and definitely worth going to those games as well. And worth noting, Clonakilty Nemo, to my knowledge anyway, isn't going to be live on Rebels Online. So any fans that are in and around the Bandon area, definitely go to the Clonakilty Nemo game. It's definitely one not to be missed. Also, the Premier Senior Football Championship, there was one quarter final last weekend. St Finbarrs beating Ballinascarthy on a scoreline of 215 to 210. We won't talk about the game, obviously, because there are no West Cork sides there, but the ramifications of this is St Finbarrs come up against Castlehaven in the semi-final of the Premier Senior Championship for the 5th year in a row. Sean, it's repetitive at this stage, but we always love a clash between St Finbarrs and Castlehaven. It's just amazing in its own right that this hasn't been a final pairing in the last 5 years. It's been all semi-finals, but definitely a brilliant fixture to look forward to nonetheless.
Oh yeah, definitely, Matt. When these two go against each other, there's no doubt that it always brings up a classic. In terms of high scoring, attacking football, there's both teams know that they just leave the shackles off when they go against each other. There's no man marking Brian Hurley from St Finbarr's side. There's no man marking Stephen Sherlock from the Haven side. Both teams go at it hammer and tongs. So it always has brought up classics, even going all the way to penalty shootout a couple of times. But it is interesting how every time they've met, it's been at the semi-final stage. And I don't know if that's maybe a seeding issue, maybe to look at in the future to see if these teams can maybe meet in the group stages or some other way down the line. But yeah, they are two of the perennial big three in the county. So you'd imagine, Matt, whoever comes out on top when those two meet, that they'll be the favourites for the championship.
Definitely so, and definitely looking forward to that from a West Cork point of view, seeing a West Cork side in Castlehaven get to the semi-finals against the Bars, and that will be discussed more in depth in next week's podcast as we look forward to that game. Another West Cork team in the semi-finals of the county championships is Dohenys. They beat Martra on Friday night on a scoreline of 214 to 14 points, and it means the Dohenys team will face Knocknagree in the semi-finals, and they faced Knocknagree last year, beating them in Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well. So it's a brilliant result for Declan O'Dwyer's side, Sean, and fully deserved, like a 6-point victory over a very good Martra side. It's a brilliant win for Dohenys, and Keith White and Fionn Hurley to the fore again.
Yeah, fantastic. Dohenys were kind of being almost shut aside, I suppose, when you have this new bright shiny toy almost in Martra coming up to the new grade, playing Pro Park and All Ireland final. All the talk is going to be about them, and Dohenys have been plodding away, ever so slightly in the background, obviously losing the opening game to Kanturk only by a couple of points though, and not having a full squad. Then coming out the next day against Fermoy and then defeating Skib. They were going very quietly under the radar into this one, but I think people are going to stand up and take notice now after this. We know here in West Cork what ability this Dohenys team have. There's no question about it. When you come up against these fellas underage, you know their ability, and they really shone out the last day. I wasn't at the game myself, but apparently a huge turning moment in it was there was actually an own goal, which was very unusual in the game. So Dohenys were, I think, up about 6 or 7 midway through the second half. Martra kicked 4 in a row to get back into it, but then a freak own goal managed to turn the momentum back to the Dunmanway's side. With about 5 to 10 minutes left in the game. So, but you need that small bit of luck as well when you're at that stage of the competition. But I'd imagine Dohenys will be looking at this Knocknagree game now, Matt, with a lot of confidence, having gone up against them last year in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and it was as you mentioned, Fionn Hurley was a big man for him that day, but Keith White is flying for him now this year. So they have the ability to call on so many players from so many positions, and I'd give them a great shot at getting into a final.
Yeah, definitely so. They're in a tremendous form at the moment, Dohenys. And on the other side of the draw as well, Carrigaline beat Bishopstown on a scoreline of 113 to 111, and it means Carrigaline will come up against Kanturk on the other side of the draw in the other semi-final. And in the relegation playoff in Senior A, it was Clydagh Rovers 1-9, Kish Games 7 points. So Clydagh Rovers survive another season in Enniskeane, go down to Premier Intermediate. Speaking of Premier Intermediate, that's the next championship we'll look at. And unfortunately, from a West Cork point of view, Bantry Blues lost out in the quarter-final stage in this one. They lost to Eire Og 3-10 to 13 points. And I wasn't at this game, Sean, but from hearing the match reports, Eire Og Jones once again was to the fore for Eire Og, scoring a total of 2-4 in this game. So when you have a brilliant forward like that in your team, you're always going to be a threat. And Eire Og were certainly that against Bantry on Saturday.
Yeah, you said it there pretty much. He is the he is the form footballer now in Cork at the moment. He is probably the most dangerous forward across all the grades. I had a chance to watch him when Carbery played Muskerry, and he was the difference. Muskerry now went to a quarter final. Fair play to him, but without Eire Og Jones, don't see that happening. He's absolutely flying it, and it's a case of now, if you're going to be playing him, I'd know Kilshannig look at putting one man in front and one man behind. Is that probably the smart option? And then saying, whoever else is left, you beat us rather than Eire Og, because that man is a one-man wrecking machine at the moment. And obviously, Bantry had 2 prior victories over Eire in the last 2 years. But it was Eire, got the best of him at the 3rd time out. But it's a tough one for Bantry. They've been on the go now for the last 2 county finals, 2 long seasons, and then you add in their under 21s were in action over the winter and winning the under 21 West Cork A. So they have a good cohort of players there that have been constantly going now for a while. And do you know what? A long break might do them the world of good as well. Whatever players aren't going to be involved in the under-21 county championships, which is another conversation itself. They're going to be kicking off in October, but it might be good for Bantry just to reset and go again, because we know they have the ability, but they probably were the second best team there now against Eire the last, and the Muskerry side are well deserving a place in the semi-final.
Yeah, definitely so. And you talk about the young talent that Bantry have as well. There is an exceptional minor that's doing well for Cork at the moment by the name of JAHC, and I don't know, is he going to be available for Bantry next year? If he is, that's an incredible coup to get, I'd imagine as well, because he is a very, very good talent indeed. But Bantry are unfortunately out of the Premier Intermediate Football Championship for 2024. In the other quarter-final, Naomh beat Rockchapel by 9 points to 6, and by the draw, it means, as you mentioned there, Sean, Kilshannig will come up against Eire Og, and Naomh will be up against Bullock. More disappointment, unfortunately, from a West Cork point of view. In the relegation playoff, Macroom beat Ilen Rovers on a scoreline of 113 to 111. That is Ireland's 3rd relegation in 4 years. And I was at this game, and Ireland, to be fair to them, were very, very good. It was probably their best performance of the year. But there was a spell between the 30th and the 51st minute where Macroom outscored Ireland 6 points to 1, and ultimately that was the deciding factor in the game. Emmett Howard got a goal late on for Ireland in the 57th minute to make it a 1-point game, but Macroom went down the other end and took the sensible option in putting the ball over the bar. But the Ireland players afterwards, they were absolutely devastated, and yeah, it's a relegation for them, but if they produce a performance like that again in Intermediate A next year on a more consistent basis, they'll do a lot better, in my opinion, than they did in previous seasons.
Oh, 100%. And it's a case of, as well, Ireland have so many players that they could avail of in the next couple of years as well, considering what life choice they make, and if they come back, live at home, because they won under 21 West Cork A back in 2016, as I believe, and we had just won a county final in the under 21 B, and out came trotting Ireland after for the A final, up against the pinnacle of Cork football. So, they have a really good nucleus there of players around 26 to 27, that if they could get them back in the next year or two, you could see them pushing up through the grades again. And it would be great for the club, because, even the Ireland team, the Naughties, came so close to winning senior title and, contesting at Premier Senior there, even back 3 or 4 years ago. Like, they deserve to be up at the top level for even for the people that got them there. And it's a shame that they've dropped so low, but if they can get those cohort of players back in the next couple of years and keep the nucleus that they have at the moment, I can see them coming back up again. So that's probably a nice positive spin on what's been a tough few years for them.
Definitely has, but surely there are brighter days ahead from Ilen Rovers' point of view, and hopefully from their point of view as well, that they go back up straight away from Intermediate A next season. And speaking of the Intermediate A Championship, obviously the Mitchelstown Carbery Rangers game was postponed. There were two other games, and that Borabui beating Glanworth on a scoreline of 214 to 14 points. And that means in terms of the quarterfinals, definitely if Gabriel Rangers come out on top against Mitchelstown, they'll face Glanmire in the semi-finals. So definitely an element to look forward to in that case. And in the relegation playoff, it was St Vincent's that beat Na Piarsaigh on a scoreline of 2-5 to 1-7. So Na Piarsaigh go down to Premier Junior for 2025. In the Premier Junior Championship, Urhan, unfortunately, again from a West Cork point of view, they lost to Cannavee on a scoreline of 2-6 to 1-6. And he mentioned last week, Sean, that the Urhan, in a way, are punching above their weight because of the effort that they gave, the small pool of players that they have to pick. Ultimately, though, their run has come to an end at the hands of a very good Cannavee side.
Yeah, disappointing result, Matt, but overall a good year for Urhan, considering, as I mentioned to and alluded to last week, they've only 3 or 4 subs. They have a squad of 18, 19. They're really, put to the pin of their collar numbers wise. And they're coming up against a Cannavee team that literally cleared the road that was all ahead of them in the Junior A Championship last year and cruised to a county title. So to really rattle the Cannavee side is very encouraging for an Urhan team that literally has a really small base of players. So if you offer them at the start of the year, to get to knockout stage and run Cannavee close, I imagine the management team in Urhan would have been very, very pleased with that. And they should be proud with their exploits this year.
Yeah, exactly. And Urhan will have a lot to build on, I'm sure, for the 2025 season. And in the other quarter-final, Kilmurray beat Glenville on a scoreline of 4-11 to 4 points. In the relegation playoff in Premier Junior, obviously more bad news from a West Cork point of view. Unfortunately, St James's are back down to the Carbery Junior A Football Championship after they lost to St Nick's at the weekend in a 1-11 to 12 point scoreline. Owen Downey scoring an early goal, the Cork hurler. And ultimately, it was too much for St James's to handle, and they are down to the Carbery Junior A Football Championship after 2 seasons in the Premier Junior Championship at county level.
Yeah, it's a tough one to take, Matt. Of all the relegations, I think the most penalising one is the Premier Junior to the Junior Championship, because we all know how tough it is to win a county title at Junior A in hurling and football. So it's a heartbreaking one for Ardfield. They've got a taste of what it's like in the county championships, and they were drawn in the group of death this year. There's no doubt about it. It was always going to be very hard for them to even get out of the group, 1, and to avoid relegation, 2. So they came up against the side then against St Nick's, who were playing senior football only 5 or 6 years ago. So it's crazy the way tables have turned for them as well. But they were able to rely on a few Glen Rovers hurlers. I know we were sat here previewing the game saying, will the Glen release a few of the hurlers? And obviously they did, as you alluded to, Owen Downey getting a goal. So yeah, it's a tough one for Ardfield as well. So they're back down to the Carbery division now for next season, and they'll be looking to regroup again for the 2025 championship.
And yeah, it's going to be a tough one for St James's to take, obviously. Moving down to the Carbery Junior A Championship, as you mentioned there, Sean, there was 2 quarterfinals last weekend. Dermot O'Mahonas beat Carbery Rangers on a scoreline of 3-11 to 12 points, and Castlehaven beat Argideen Rangers. It was 11 points apiece after extra time, went to penalties, and Castlehaven won on a penalty shootout by 5 goals to 4. So 2 interesting quarterfinals there, and it does mean that Dermot O'Mahonas will meet Castlehaven in the semi-final of the Junior A Football Championship, and we're sure to get a new finalist in terms of the Carbery Junior A Championship.
Yeah, new finalists, and it's always great, to get new blood in there the whole time. So even just speaking about Argideen Rangers and Castlehaven first, like last week, I just knew there was going to be nothing between these 2 teams. They're not easily beaten, either one of them. So a draw would have been a likely option, but a draw after extra time, slightly more, a long shot, but it was nip and tuck all the way. I think Timely kicked the last 2 equalizers in normal time and in extra time. But it's a cruel way for your season to finish as well, Matt. To go out on penalties. is just the nature of things when there's week after week and there's a schedule to follow, they have to get it done. But yeah, it's a tough one to take when you lose on penalties. And then in the other quarter final, Diarmid O'Mahony's are pretty much the story of the year so far, with their success in both codes. Carbery obviously would have been going into this, having topped their group as maybe the favourites. Diarmid O'Mahony's kind of going under the radar, but they tore into the Ross lads at the start and blitzed them, scoring about 2-8 in the first half. So it was fantastic scoring on their part, and it just shows that a rising tide floats all boats. Where their hurlers are flying it, now their footballers are flying it, and they have a really good chance of making a West Cork football final and hurling final, which would be an unprecedented season for them.
Yeah, definitely so. And Diarmid O'Mahony's are definitely the story of the Carbery Championship so far. We're going to take a quick break now, and after the break, we will be leading into the Carbery Junior A Hurling Championship semi-finals.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So welcome back to the Star Sport podcast, and in a while we'll talk to Brian O'Donovan from Ballinascarthy about their meeting with St James's in the Carbery Junior A Hurling Championship semi-finals. But before we do that, Sean, we'll discuss the two semi-finals that are happening this weekend. Obviously, as I mentioned, Ball facing St James's at 2:30 in Enniskeane this Sunday, and on the same day, Diarmid O'Mahony's face Newcestown at 4:30 in Eire Og. Two very interesting semi-finals to look forward to, and especially with Clon, the holders, out of the competition now. It's all up for grabs in this Junior A Hurling Championship.
It is, Matt. There's no doubt about that. And the first one is a very intriguing one when you have Ball and St James going against each other. Ball, who were obviously beaten by Clon last year, and St James, who were obviously beaten by Clon last year. So Ball made it to Ball made it to the semi-final and got caught in extra time. It was an absolute classic of a game between themselves and Clon last year, 320 to 222. And then St James's pretty much, it wasn't as close in the West Cork final. Clon had a bit too much for him, but you'd have to think that Ball will probably be going into this as favourites just on the season they've had so far in the County League and in their championship, winning all their games to this point. But St James are a tough physical hurling team to know. And they'll have that extra small bit of motivation after the football disappointment, to make the best of the hurling. So it should be an interesting one. And then after that, you have Diarmid O'Mahony's, as we spoke about just a while ago, in the football championship, flying it, hurling equally as so. And a lot will probably say Diarmid O'Mahony's be favourites for this, but I've seen Newcestown play, and I know they're no easy pushovers. They're well capable of matching with any team in this grade. They're very solid defensively, and are well able to take their scores up front as well. So two very entertaining matchups this weekend, Matt.
Definitely so. And let's hear from Brian O'Donovan from Ballinascarthy now. So delighted to be joined in the Star Sport podcast by Ballinascarthy's lethal forward, Brian O'Donovan, to discuss their match against St James's in the Carbery Junior A Hurling Championship semi-final this weekend in Enniskeane. Should be a very entertaining game as well. Obviously, Ball are going well in both codes at the moment in football and hurling, one of a few clubs that can still do the Junior A double, which is great from a Ball point of view. First of all, Brian, how are things with yourself? Ball are on a high at the moment and going to a semi-final this weekend against James's.
You always want to get to the end of the competition anyway, so getting to the semi-final against James will be tough the weekend, but looking forward to it. Yeah, everyone is in good spirits and everything, so we're looking forward to the game at the weekend.
Is there much pressure going to the game against James, considering James obviously knocked out one of the favourites of the competition in Clonakilty, the holders from last year? Obviously, it's going to be a difficult game for you at the weekend.
Yeah, sure. I suppose when you're going into a semi-final, there's always pressure to try get into the final, but no, to be fair, we've kind of focused on playing our own game now at the weekend and see how we get on. But there's not huge pressure or anything like that. We've been doing well all year, so it's kind of just to keep that going really more than anything.
I suppose at the group stage last year, I can remember a game in Dunmanway where James is pushed very close in the game indeed, and they seem to be improving as a hurling team year on year. So that has to be taken into consideration, I'd imagine, in the group as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, geez, we had a very tough game against Ardfield last year. You know, we were lucky enough to get through it. I think we were pretty close all the way until Sean Ryan got a goal, and that kind of gave us a little bit of breathing space. But like, I know we'll be expecting a very tough game at the weekend. Ardfield always bring a lot of intensity and physicality and stuff. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to the game. And yeah, definitely. I suppose we've played Ardfield a few times now since I've started playing junior. So we're well used to each other, I suppose.
And even Clon getting knocked out in the quarterfinals. I know it's kind of a cliche for many sides just to concentrate on the job in hand as the games come and all that. But once Clon did go out in the quarterfinal, were you thinking like this is a brilliant chance for Ballinascarthy to go on and win a Turf 39 in 4 years?
I don't know that it changed the probabilities or anything like that. Like Ardfield will still be very tough, and they obviously played very well to beat Clon the last day. I know for us, you probably always want to play the team that knocked you out the year beforehand. But no, look, it'll be fair play to Ardfield really for beating Clon, because no matter who Clon have playing 1-15, they're always going to be very strong, fit. So yeah, look, it didn't bother us too much, but I suppose a little bit of you is always hoping that you'll come up against a team that knock you out. So, but look. It doesn't matter too much to us. We'll drive on with playing Ardfield at the weekend.
Does being one of the favourites for the competition play in the heads of the players even before the season starts? Because like Bal have won 3, as we mentioned at the start of the show, there 2 out of the last 3 Flyer Nines in the Carbery Junior A hurling championship. So does that kind of play a role in how the team performs in a way, or expecting good things in a way, or what do you think about that kind of element?
No, look, to be fair, the managers we have in charge of us this year, you know, Jace, Fergal, Philip, Kieran, they're not really putting any pressure on us this year. I suppose a few of the games in the group stage, you probably have your own pressure put on yourself because you want to get into the business end of stuff. But there's not so much pressure, you know. For a long time, we weren't that successful. So the last few years have been great that we've been able to get to finals, get to semi-finals, get to a few county stages. So, no, look, I suppose everyone puts their own bit of personal pressure on themselves to perform and stuff, but as a group, we're pretty relaxed about the whole thing. There's not a whole lot of pressure being put on us at the moment.
I suppose the quarterfinal against Randall Og, you were level at half time in that game. Randall's really put it up to you, but you pushed on in the second half and produced a brilliant performance in that one. You yourself got 3 goals and a point according to a match report recently as well. So like that was a good performance to get under our belts as well. And Randall Og, a tough opposition to face in the quarters, I'd imagine, before the big semi-final.
Yeah, definitely. No, do you know what, we kind of knew Randall's would come with a lot of intensity, that they'd be really up for the game. And to be fair to them, like, we were nearly hanging on to them in the first half. They were playing some super stuff. And I suppose we kind of regrouped at halftime, changed the tactics a little bit more. We kind of hitting the ball a little bit closer in and stuff like that. So that probably helped. But no, geez, definitely, it was a good game for us to get in the quarterfinals, to get us a little bit sharper for the semi-finals. But no, fair play to Randalls, they were super, yeah. Especially in that first half, yeah, we were lucky to be hanging in there.
I suppose does that show the quality in the Carbery Championship at the same time as well? We mentioned Clon, we mentioned James, as Randall's produced a good performance against G as well. There are other good teams up and down the division as well, I'm sure. Lukestone's B team and Dermot Mahone is in the other semi-final. So does that show the quality, I suppose, in opposition in the Carbery Championship as well?
Yeah, definitely. You've mentioned Randall's there. To be fair, a good few of the Randall's guys played in the Carbery team this year, and they're all quite good. It's the same with most clubs. Like it can be up and down, but most of the teams in Carbery will always give you a pretty tough game. Like, you know, we played Dunmanway a few years ago and there was nothing in it. It was penalties, you know, and that was nearly our best year after it all. You know, we got to a county semi-final, I think. So to be fair, between like Clon, Dunmanway, Mahooners, Newstown, Randalls, there's very little between us. Ardfield, there's not a whole pile between us, and to be fair, every game you go out, it's tough no matter who you play.
Definitely is, and I suppose was it a bit disappointed to see in a way in the county championships, for example, moving away from that in the county championships, that the 5 clubs involved, there was a very bad record there. There was Aberdeen involved in a relegation playoff. Bandon were very near it as well. Barry Rowan, Kilbrittain didn't progress out of the group, neither did Lukestown were a Premier Senior, so a tough grade to pass in any case. But was that kind of disappointing from a Carbery hurlers point of view that they didn't do as well as maybe anticipated before the season?
No, I don't think so. I think all of the grades that the teams are in are going to be tough to get through. Like, to be fair, Cork every grade is really tough to come through. And like most of the teams last year, like maybe a little bit of a dip this year, but Barrow did really well last year in the hurling, and Kilbrittain have a history of doing really well. Same with Timoleague and Newstown going up last year. Like, so I wouldn't say it was a disappointment for the Carbery side of things or anything like that. All of those teams are in those grades on merit, like, so just gives them a bit more motivation to push on for next year, I suppose.
And sure, even look at yourselves again, like even winning the league back earlier on the year, winning the Division 7 of the league, beating Kinsale in that final earlier on the season. Did that give the group a bit of belief that they could compete in county series, for example, if you get out of Carbery, of course?
Yeah, I suppose it would. It's the enjoyable thing about playing in the Division 6 and our Division 7 this year and Division 6 next year. You're playing some different teams you would never play beforehand, and you get a little bit of a change up. So yeah, we were pretty happy with how the league went this year. We had, there's very little between all those teams in the leagues. Like, we got through a few games by a point. I think we lost 2 by maybe 1 or 2 points as well. So there's very little between all the teams. Like, I think on the final weekend there could have been 4 teams were all in contention for going up and playing in the final. Like, so to come out of that, yeah, it probably gives you a little bit of confidence that you've had a good league before you start your championship. So I suppose, yeah, it gives you a little bit of confidence going forward that you can play these bigger teams and you can do well. And we'll be looking forward now to Division 6 to see how we get on. Yeah, and we'll be playing a few of the teams locally as well as teams from up to county. So it'd be nice to challenge there and see how we go.
It's a nice challenge, all right, just to see your kind of stance against some bigger opposition around Cork as well. And Division 6 is no mean feat of a division as well. So definitely a challenge that you look forward to next season, obviously after you completed this year. Yeah,
looking forward to it. Yeah, look, it's something new. It's something new. It's nice to play some games up in the city, to go a little bit further than that. You're always challenging yourself a little bit when you progress on. And it was nice to get a bit of silverware at the start of the year after having maybe a little bit of a disappointing year last year, So that was a nice way to start off before we get into our championship.
I suppose, like, what does the hurling team mean to the locality of Ballinascarthy in a way? Because they've been very, very successful over the last few seasons. 2 out of 3 Flyer-9s, as I mentioned. They could actually win another Flyer-9 this year, all going well, of course, for yourselves. Like, it's a brilliant time to be a Ballinascarthy hurler at this present moment in time. Yeah,
it's a good time to be involved now. To be fair, I think we were lucky. Around my age, we had a lot of guys coming through. Who make the kind of bulk of the team now, so we're lucky in that sense. No, to be fair, the team is very important to people living around there. You can kind of see it by all the guys who are helping out with the pit, who are with us every training, every match. Like, they're brilliant, for carrying water, hurleys. They're super. And it does mean a lot. It's small things, but it means a lot at the end of the day. But yeah, it gives a good bit of joy to the people living in Ballinascarthy, right? I think half the time it's probably they get a bit more enjoyment than us playing in it, but it's good to see for the locality.
Definitely is. And just a final question before we end the chat here. Like, the main probably story of the last weekend, obviously, was the cancellation of games on Sunday. Obviously, Clonakilty Nemo was up there. You Carbery Rangers are up, plus your own game as well. Of the football junior A side of things, Ballinascarthy and St Mary's was off because of the orange weather warning as well. What kind of an effect does that have on players as a matter of interest? Because, like, from the outside, it seemed like a bit of a headache for the county board in trying to organise fixtures and the Carbery board themselves as well. But what's it like from a player's point of view in knowing that you're going sight into a game on the night before, but then it's cancelled What's kind of the feeling amongst the camp when things like that happen?
Do you know what? Like personally, it was a bit. It kind of changes your calendar going forward for the next few weeks, but it's not a major thing. To be honest, I didn't mind too much. We've been playing a lot of games every weekend, so to get a weekend off is good. It gives us a little bit more rest before we go into play this weekend. But yeah, I see your point. Probably the night beforehand. To be fair, our managers were quite good. They kind of let us know early on the Saturday that more than likely, if this weather warning doesn't change, that match probably won't be on. So I think half of us had a fair idea that it wouldn't be going ahead, and we were all kind of waiting for the announcement at around 7 o'clock. So no, to be fair, like it hasn't really changed too much for us. It's a weekend off. Can get an extra hurling session in, so it's probably a bit of a headache, all right, for people organising the fixtures. But as a player, look, when the matches are on, so it doesn't push us either way too much.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky situation, and definitely one that many people have different opinions on, I'm sure. But yeah, thanks for your time, Brian, and joining the Star Sport podcast today, and best of luck for Ballinascarthy against St James at the weekend.
No worries. Thanks, Matt.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So it's that time of the week again where we look at what is in the Southern Star Sports section this Thursday, and it is action-packed as usual. Dohenys beating Martra is going to be the headline of this week's Star Sports section. This week, after they beat Martra on a scoreline of 214 to 14 points, and we will have a report and reaction from that game in Macroom. The two Carbery Junior A Football Championship quarterfinals that did go ahead last weekend will be also in this week's section, with Castlehaven coming out on top against Eire Og Rangers and Dermot Mahonas beating Carbery Rangers in those two quarterfinals. Away from Gaelic games, there is some positivity in the sports section in West Cork this week, as Enya Breen was part of the Irish women's rugby team that beat New Zealand 29 points to 27 in a famous victory for the Irish women's rugby team, and there will be a piece on that this week. She was on song and the whole Irish team were on song, which is great to see. There's also an interview with Fintan McCarthy, who won a recent Star Sports award in recent weeks, and Fintan is in as good form as he usually is. There's also a piece on Keith Cronin, who won the Irish Tarmac Rally Championship title last weekend in that as well, and there will be a motorsport section in this week's Star Sport section in the paper as well. There's soccer, there's rugby, there's Gaelic games, there's all sorts in this week's Star Sport section, and definitely one to keep an eye out on this Thursday as well. So and as usual, if you are further afield and can't make it to the shops, you could subscribe to the Southern Star e-paper and get the Southern Star on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/subscribe, enter your details, and you'll get an exact replica of the paper for less than €2 per week. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Until then, take care.